The arrival of terror. The Empire's shadow falls. The Cytherian Empire had ruled the Outer Rim worlds for 300 years. Their massive dreadnoughts carved through space like predators through still water, leaving behind the broken remains of any civilization foolish enough to resist. Admiral Zethkar stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the blue-green marble of the human colony world Epsilon 7 rotate slowly beneath them. 68 Cytherian warships surrounded the planet in perfect formation. Each vessel bristled with plasma cannons capable of turning cities to glass. Their shields glowed with the crimson light of contained energy, and their hulls bore the scars of 100 conquered worlds. This was the 10th Battle Fleet, the Empire's most feared military force, and they had never known defeat. Status report. Zethkar commanded, his 4 arms crossed behind his back in the traditional pose of Cytherian authority. His exoskeleton gleamed with polished ceremonial armor, and his compound eyes reflected the tactical displays surrounding him. "All ships report ready for planetary bombardment, Admiral," replied his tactical officer, a younger Cytherian named Velter. "The human colony has approximately 8 million inhabitants. They have no orbital defenses, and only a handful of cargo vessels in their shipyards." Zethkar's mandibles clicked together in satisfaction. 8 million humans reduced to ash within the hour. Their screams would echo across the galaxy as a warning to any other species that dared to expand into Cytherian space. The humans had been particularly troublesome lately, establishing colonies faster than the Empire could claim systems. This would remind them of their place in the galactic hierarchy. "Begin the bombardment sequence," Zethkar ordered. "Target their major population centers first. I want survivors to witness the price of defying the Empire before we finish them." The weapons officer began charging the main plasma batteries when suddenly every alarm on the bridge began screaming at once. Red lights flashed across every console as sensor readings spiked beyond normal parameters. "Admiral," Velter's voice cracked with shock. "Something just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. It's massive, sir. Larger than anything in our databases." Zethkar spun toward the main display screen, his compound eyes widening as the sensor data resolved into an image that defied belief. A single human warship hung in the darkness of space, but calling it a warship seemed inadequate. The vessel stretched nearly 15 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a matte black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange geometric patterns covered its surface, pulsing with an eerie blue-white energy that made Zethkar's kitten crawl. "Impossible," he whispered. "Human technology cannot produce ships of that size. Our intelligence reports show their largest vessels are barely 2 kilometers long." The mysterious ship made no aggressive moves. It simply sat motionless at the system's edge, silent as a grave. No communication signals, no weapon charges, no shield activation. Just presence. But that presence filled every Cytherian on every ship with an inexplicable sense of dread. The Prometheus awakens. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, her hands clasped behind her back, as she studied the Cytherian fleet through the main view screen. At 45, she had spent her entire adult life in the human navy, rising through the ranks during the desperate early years when humanity first encountered hostile alien species. Her brown hair was streaked with premature gray, and her dark eyes held the weight of decisions that had saved or doomed entire worlds. 68 ships, reported her tactical officer, Commander Marcus Chen. Standard Cytherian dreadnought configuration. They've got enough firepower to crack the planet's crust. "Time until they begin bombardment?" Vasquez asked quietly. "Based on their formation and energy readings, approximately 6 minutes, Captain." Dr. Sarah Kim, the ship's chief science officer, turned from her console with concern etched across her features. "Captain, I'm reading massive population centers on Epsilon 7. Over 8 million people. If those ships open fire..." Vasquez nodded grimly. 8 million souls hanging in the balance. The Prometheus had arrived just in time, but whether they could save those lives remained to be seen. The ship beneath her feet represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, born from decades of reverse engineering alien technology and pushing the boundaries of physics itself. But it had never been tested against odds like these. Dr. Reeves, Vasquez called to the ship's chief engineer, a brilliant but eccentric man whose wild hair matched his unpredictable personality. Status of the reality anchor. Dr. James Reeves looked up from his console, his eyes bright with the fever of scientific discovery. All systems are green, Captain. The quantum stabilizers are holding steady, and the dimensional matrix is locked in place. But Elena, you know what this weapon can do. Once we activate it, there's no predicting how the universe itself will react. The reality anchor. Humanity's answer to overwhelming odds. A weapon that didn't just destroy matter or energy, but temporarily suspended the laws of physics themselves within a localized area of space. During testing, they had watched it reduce asteroids to their component atoms, not through force or heat, but by simply convincing reality that those atoms had never been arranged in that particular pattern. Captain, interrupted Lieutenant Rodriguez at the communication station. The Cytherian flagship is hailing us. Put them on screen. The bridge's main display flickered, and Admiral Zethkar's imposing form filled the view screen. His compound eyes glittered with a mixture of curiosity and contempt as he studied the human captain. When he spoke, his voice was translated by the ship's computers into flat mechanical English. Human vessel, you have entered a combat zone where the Cytherian Empire is conducting lawful military operations. Your presence here constitutes an act of war against the Empire. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Captain Vasquez stepped forward, her expression calm despite the desperate situation. Admiral Zethkar, I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth ship Prometheus. Those 8 million people on the planet below are under the protection of the Human Federation. I'm offering you one opportunity to withdraw your fleet peacefully. Zethkar's laughter was like the sound of breaking glass. One human ship against 68 Cytherian dreadnoughts. Your species' capacity for self-delusion continues to amaze me, Captain. You have 30 seconds to surrender before I add your vessel to the debris field we're about to create. Admiral, Vasquez replied, her voice taking on a harder edge. I've studied your tactical records. You're an intelligent commander who cares about his crew. Don't make me demonstrate why the Prometheus traveled here alone. Something in her tone gave Zethkar pause. No human captain had ever spoken to him with such quiet confidence when faced with impossible odds. Either this Captain Vasquez was completely insane, or she knew something he didn't. The smart play would be to destroy her ship immediately and proceed with the bombardment. But curiosity had always been Zethkar's weakness. Demonstrate what exactly? He asked. Captain Vasquez turned to her tactical officer. Commander Chen, please target the asteroid cluster in grid reference 7 Alpha, the large one, approximately 2 kilometers in diameter. Chen's fingers danced across his console. Target locked, Captain. Fire. When reality breaks. The Prometheus had no visible weapons, no gun ports, no missile tubes, no energy cannons. Instead, space itself seemed to shimmer around the massive vessel as the reality anchor activated. The effect was subtle at first, like heat waves rising from hot pavement, but it quickly intensified into something that hurt to look at directly. The targeted asteroid, a chunk of rock and ice that had been drifting through space for millions of years, began to change. Not explode, not melt, not shatter. Change. Its molecular structure became uncertain, flickering between states of matter as the laws of physics struggled to maintain coherence in the area around it. Colors that had no names rippled across its surface as reality itself became negotiable. Then, with a sound that somehow carried through the vacuum of space directly into the minds of every observer, the asteroid simply stopped being. Not destroyed, not disintegrated, but erased from existence as if it had never been. The space where it had floated was perfectly empty, cleaner than vacuum, absent of even the quantum foam that filled the universe at the subatomic level. On the Cytherian flagship, absolute silence reigned. Every sensor array, every computer system, every scientific instrument screamed warnings about impossible readings. The asteroid hadn't been destroyed by any recognizable form of energy. It had been edited out of reality itself. Analysis, Zethkar whispered, his voice barely audible. Velter's hands shook as he read the sensor data. Admiral, according to our instruments, that asteroid never existed. Our computers have no record of it ever being there. The only reason we remember it is because we observed it directly with our own eyes. That's impossible. Yes, sir. Completely impossible. But it happened. Captain Vasquez's voice cut through the stunned silence as her transmission resumed. Admiral, what you just witnessed was a controlled demonstration using minimal power. The reality anchor can affect targets up to the size of small moons. It doesn't destroy them. It retroactively prevents them from ever having existed in the first place. Zethkar stared at the empty space where the asteroid had been, his mind struggling to process what he had seen. In 3 centuries of Cytherian expansion, they had encountered thousands of alien species and their technologies. Energy weapons, kinetic bombardment, exotic matter manipulation, even primitive psionics. But nothing like this. Nothing that could reach into the fundamental structure of existence itself and make changes. The weapon has a theoretical maximum range of 50,000 kilometers, Vasquez continued. More than enough to affect your entire fleet simultaneously. I could erase every one of your ships from reality, and no one in the galaxy would remember they had ever been built. The Cytherian admiral's tactical mind raced through possibilities. If the humans possessed this technology, why hadn't they used it before? Why allow the Empire to conquer world after world when they could have ended every conflict instantly? Unless... You're bluffing, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. If you had such power, you would have used it already. Would we? Vasquez asked quietly. Admiral, do you have any idea what it costs to erase something from existence? Not in terms of energy or resources, but in terms of the damage it causes to the fabric of reality itself. Every time we use this weapon, we risk creating paradoxes that could unravel causality across entire star systems. Dr. Reeves leaned over to whisper urgently in the captain's ear. Elena, the quantum resonance is building. If we fire again too soon, we could create a cascade effect. The reality anchor is too dangerous to use as an idle threat. Vasquez nodded almost imperceptibly, then continued her transmission to the Cytherian fleet. But sometimes, Admiral, protecting innocent lives is worth any risk. I'm prepared to erase your entire fleet if that's what it takes to save the people on Epsilon 7. Throughout the Cytherian formation, panic was beginning to spread. Ship captains were demanding explanations from their science officers, who had none to give. The humans had just violated every known law of physics, and the implications were terrifying. If they could erase matter from existence, what else could they do? Could they erase people, planets, entire star systems? On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Zethkar found himself facing the most difficult decision of his long military career. His instincts screamed at him to attack, to overwhelm the human vessel with concentrated fire from all 68 ships. But his intelligence warned him that he was facing something beyond his understanding, a technology so advanced that it might as well be magic. The asteroid was gone. Not destroyed, gone. And if Captain Vasquez was telling the truth about the weapon's range and power, his entire fleet could suffer the same fate. Worse, they would be erased so completely that the Empire would never even know what had happened to them. Captain Vasquez, he said finally, his voice heavy with the weight of centuries of Cytherian pride. You ask me to withdraw an entire battle fleet based on the demonstration of a single weapon. How do I know you won't simply attack our worlds once we leave? Because, Admiral, Vasquez replied, if we wanted to conquer the galaxy, we would have done it already. Humanity seeks only to protect its people and colonies. We have no interest in ruling others. Zethkar studied the human captain's face on his screen, searching for any sign of deception. What he saw instead was weariness, the exhaustion of someone who had seen too much war and death. This wasn't a conqueror speaking, but a guardian pushed to the edge of what she was willing to do. The silence stretched between the two fleets, human and alien, as thousands of lives hung in the balance. On Epsilon 7 below, 8 million colonists looked up at the stars and prayed for salvation. In the depths of space, the UES Prometheus waited like a sleeping god, its reality anchor ready to reshape existence itself. And in the command center of the Cytherian flagship, an alien admiral who had never known defeat prepared to make a choice that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come.